In this video, codingbat.com, section list 1, and today's question is called common end. So let's start by looking at the question for common end. The question states, given two arrays of ints a and b, return true if they have the same first element or they have the same last element. Both arrays will be length of 1 or more. So basically what we need to do is, given two lists, we need to check if either the first element is the same or the last element is the same. And here we have our common end function. We can see that it takes two arguments, a and b. Each of these arguments is going to be a list, be it 1, 2, 3, or be it 7, 3, or 7, 3, 2, right? It could be any list of integers. And so we're going to be comparing list A to list B. So basically this task is all about learning how to grab the first element and learning how to grab the last element of a list. So basically learning how to do that indexing. And what I mean by that is, let's say that we have nums equals 1, 2, 3. So how do we grab the first value in this list? Basically what we would do is nums, and we would have opening and closing brackets here, and inside we would do 0. And when we run this, we see that it returns 1. It's returning index 0 of this list. And if we did index 1, we're getting value 2 because that's at that index, etc., right? If we did 100, that's out of range. There's not that many values in this list. So again, to grab the first value, we want to do nums 0. And the 0 is, of course, within brackets. So that's how to get the first digit, how to get the first element, but how do we get the last element? Do you know? So there's actually a trick to get the last element. And what you want to do is nums, opening and closing brackets, and -1. So when we run this, we see that we get 3. And we get 3 because 3 is the last digit in our list. And let's just say we added another digit to our list. Let's just say 200, right? So now we have 1, 2, 3, 200. Well, we could run our -1 again, and we can see that we get 200 now. So we're getting a different result because -1 is always going to get the last value in the list. And of course, we could run 0 again and see that that still gets the first value, but -1 is going to return the last value in the list. So that's a quick refresher of how to get first and last element in a list. So now back to our code. How can we put this into practice? Well, we could do if a0 equals b0, then in that case, that's somewhere we would return true, right? And so we're already starting to cover some of the conditions. Obviously, now we need to handle the last element, but already this question is starting to come together with just this first initial if statement. So now that you know how to get the last element, it's going to be pretty much the same thing, except we're going to replace those zeros with -1s. So this is our more complete if statement here. And if a0 equals b0, or, and the or is important, or a-1 equals b-1, then we're going to be returning true. So we run this, we can run this a couple times, and we can see that we have another case that's green now. So we're covering more of the potential situations. But why isn't this a complete answer yet? Well, that's because we haven't included the returning of false if the conditions are not met. So I'm expecting that now, having added this return false here, when I click go, yep, everything is now green. All answers are correct. This is our first implementation of the solution for common end. Sweet. So now that we have our working solution, how can we make this more efficient? Is there a way that we could make this code smaller and reduce the number of lines of code? And the answer is yes, we can. And the reason you know that this is possible is because we're going to be returning a Boolean. We're either returning true, given a certain set of conditions, or we're going to be returning false. So what we can do is we could say return true if these conditions are met, else false. And we can remove the if statement, and now we have everything on one line of code. And if we click go, it's still working, it's still all correct, all conditions are passing. And if this looks a little bit unreadable, just know that you could technically wrap brackets around here to sort of contain this if statement and basically a contained unit. And we can click go and we can see that that's still working. So if you find that more readable, you can do that as well. But don't need the brackets, they're purely optional. And here we have our return statement, our one-line function, common end, and this is our solution. Lastly, I wanted to review something else that's important. And if you're more experienced with coding, you might be thinking, wait a second, there's actually more code than necessary here. And that's true. There's actually a way that we could reduce this code even further. And so what we can do, because of the Boolean nature of what we're returning, is to completely remove the if and else statements here and just have return A equals B or A equals B, right, given our conditions. And we can click go and see that this still works. We've just tightened up that return statement even more. We've got rid of true and false because this is already basically evaluating to either truthy or falsy. And since we're already evaluating truthy or falsy, that's all you need. Actually writing the words truthy or falsy in words is unnecessary. So this is pretty much the shortest version of the code that you're going to be able to find. Our one-liner for common end. And so I hope you've enjoyed the solution. We've done a couple of rounds of making the answer more efficient and more terse syntax and shorter. So this is common end, and thank you very much for watching.